first thing, this is 10 things you can do to impact revenue starting today. The first one is to expand the pie. So, giant piece of pie. And what does that mean? So expand the pie is a concept that I think about when I'm thinking about selling services or selling products. Instead of thinking about, well, how do I get my little chunk? It seems to me today the way business happens is about how do you expand the pie for everyone? How do I take whatever it is that I have to offer today and offer it out in the market, but maybe there's partners or other folks that I can work together with that have something to offer as well, and maybe we can figure out a way to either go to market together or build an alliance. We'll talk a little bit more about your ecosystem. What are those things today that you can do to expand the pie instead of figuring out how to get your sliver of the pie? So that's the concept that comes into play a lot in the world that I am in, because in the business of services, we sell certain services, and what we find is that any existing customer is your best source of additional business. So rather than spend many more cycles to go out and just constantly hunt for new business, expanding the pie is also about finding adjacent services or things you can sell within your own existing clients. So the cost of sale is just significantly lower in your existing clients. So I always think about what's your revenue per client and how do you grow that that figure in your existing client base while you're growing your new clients. So expand the pie it really kind of captures that concept. I think number 2, yep, bundle better. Okay, bundle better. Bundling of services, a similar idea, but it's different than trying to just sell more services within the same client. Again, depending on what your product is, or if it's a piece of technology or so on, the more so that you can package services together so that, this is extremely intuitive. And in fact, by the way, a lot of these concepts are really simple in concept, but I always see again and again and again, I always say if every one of us did every one of these things every day, even in our own firm, our own firm would be significantly larger. We don't take our own advice well enough, and one of those ideas is bundle better. We have a tendency to go in and sell our services into one aspect of an organization without thinking about, well, maybe instead of thinking about the actual product and pushing the product out, we really try to come from the standpoint of what's the business issue? What's the issue we're trying to solve here? If your product or service solves a certain issue in the marketplace, focusing in on what that business issue is and making sure it aligns back to your business is a really effective way to sell your service. Rather than saying, hey, we've got something that we think is really exciting, that concept of, hey, we've identified a real hole in the marketplace, and this service or product addresses that issue. And by the way, we have a suite of products, or we bundle together a set of services and products that actually address that particular issue. The more so that you can bundle together services, obviously your own sale is going to increase. Your per person, per buyer sale is going to increase. And so again, depending on what all you are interested in developing or selling, think about how you may be able to bundle together services, whether it's your own or whether it's through partnerships out in the marketplace.
Fourth one is price it right.
Price it right, okay. Number 3, price it right. So pricing is a topic near and dear to my heart, and I imagine you all, especially if you all have your businesses, you're thinking a lot about pricing. Pricing is obviously the holy grail if you can get that right, and that was my focus in business school, pricing. What I find a lot is that depending on what it is that you're going to market with, pricing, it misses the mark. You're either pricing based on competition, or you're pricing based on what you think the product's value is, or you're doing a cost-plus model. My only advice to you would be just really study your pricing model really carefully, especially early on. If you think there's, you have a first market position, or there's other clearly defining sort of differentiators about your product or service. Just ensure that you don't leave money on the table. I will tell you, again, in being in a consulting firm, pricing is everything. Our business is very simple. I always say, if you want to be in consulting, it's pretty much, billable hours and the work effort, and then what do you charge for them? And all too often, I think our firm is guilty of sort of pricing things based on what we think the perceived market value, or what we think the client's value is, instead of really saying, wow, this particular offering has a higher willingness to pay by our client because it's either perceived as highly complex. If it's high complex, highly risky, and if it's high profile, I always say then that leads to higher pricing. So just be sure you don't take a one-size-fits-all approach to pricing when it comes to your products. That's another area where again, also if you start lower, it's very hard to build up from there. Again, a very basic concept when you think about pricing of your products, but wherever you start, it's pretty hard to move off that anchor, and so just be sure that you're setting your targets right from the get-go. Any questions on that? Okay. Watch the clock. I wish we had these visuals because they're just they're kind of fun actually. Watch the clock is nothing more than careful time management. It's another yeah. And I saw you watching your watch. It's good. Time management to me is absolutely key in everything that we do. In our business, I always say that you have to be really selfish about your time. Time is everybody's most precious commodity. It happens to also be our client's most precious commodity. So I always say, when you're spending time with your clients, you got to make sure, number one, that time is valuable for them. What are you bringing to the table to talk with your clients or prospects about that's interesting, that will move the dial for their business, that's unique, or do your homework, do your research. And then likewise, in terms of watching your own clock, your time is really valuable. And there are a lot of people who will waste your time. There are a lot of people out there that will, take your time and use your time, and you have to start to be really selfish about how am I spending my time, and is it getting me to where I need to be? And so it's all, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe we can ask some questions while we're waiting. We usually enjoy that time at the end, but it's technical.
She's still
So regarding time management, would you recommend, say, going, okay, between 1 and 2 o'clock, I'm going to do this particular thing, and no matter what, changing?
Yep.
But are you more flexible, because everything changes depending on how intense it happens, so when you start meeting with people, etc., more rigid, accuracy of time, or
Yep.
flexible,
Yeah, that's good. I tend to look at time more, if I look at a pie, I look at it in percentages versus amounts of time, and maybe it's more about, so what are the key activities that I need to do what I need to get done in any given week, perhaps, or day? Because you're right, you got to be nimble. I mean, we can't be rigid. And depending on where you're at, if you're developing your product and it's ready to go to market, the time that you spend, say, on, I don't know, preparatory go-to-market events is going to be different than than once your product's to market per se. So my recommendation would be to think just to log, think about it, like, how am I spending my time now? And just as an exercise, go through that, and wow, everybody, it's bright. There you go. You got to show them like 1, 2, and 3 just for kicks, And it's right before lunch, that expand the pies, like, it's going to get everybody hungry. There you go.
expand the pie.
That's a giant piece of cherry pie. Yeah, let's see, bundle better. So obviously that's packaging. Price it right.
Price it right. And number 4, watch the clock.
Watch the clock, yeah.
Great.
So again, I would just recommend, just as an exercise, you might think about, well, how am I spending my time today proportionally? If you say, well, 30 minutes on this, an hour on this, then translating that into percentages. How much time am I spending administratively? How much time am I spending out in the marketplace talking to potential clients? I mean, at least I will just tell you I've been running and managing sales organizations, even in my job today. I consider myself as the CEO of our firm, our top salesperson. I mean, that's my job, is to help us succeed in selling our services. There's never a day that I'm not thinking about that. So I always think, how much time am I spending with my customers? And I'm mindful of that. How much time am I spending administratively? How much time am I spending in meetings? And if you have a real honest, sort of take at that, and if their meetings, are they internal, are they external, are they necessary? What is, and then I would think about, well, do you think that's the right mix? And if that, if there's anything that you need to tweak today that might just say, hey, you know what, I realize that I'm spending, 40% of my time on administrative tax, which is, by the way, that's an outlandish number. It should be probably 5% of your time on administrative tax, and then, 40 to 50% time, market facing, and or getting ready to be market facing, and so on. It's just an exercise I think is worth going through, because what we find in terms of productivity, I mean, when you can eke out, especially when time is of the essence, or you're trying to get funding, or you're trying to, get your product to market, even gaining another 20, 30, 40 minutes a day can make a big difference. So that's really where I'm coming from with that. And so, I don't know if that's getting to the essence of it, but that's just, it's one of those things that I think all too often. And the other thing I notice a lot, especially when I manage salespeople, is that you just do the activities that are most comfortable first, or it's like, oh, this one's I have to go try to talk to this difficult customer or potential customer, or this, and you sort of like always put off the things that are the least comfortable. And if you can get out of that paradigm, that will make a difference as well. It's hard to do, but that's one of the biggest coaching things we do with our selling organization, is to say, where are you spending your time? Let's make some adjustments there.